Alright guys, here we are with the rules manual overview of the entirety of this thing, of what has changed, at least to the basic standpoint. The biggest thing you're going to see change is really magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We looked through the whole book. I didn't read every word, but playing for so many years, I was able to skim the paragraphs quickly because I knew exactly what was supposed to be there. We caught a few differences, nothing major, but definitely things that will tweak the way you play and help you in certain situations. So it's the same game you love or the same game you hate. I don't know you, but yeah, it's not like Warhammer to Age of Sigmar. It's very much like Age of Sigmar to Age of Sigmar 2.0. Slight tweaks, but it still feels the same.
Mm-hmm. And lots of balancing, at least in the core rules. There's a bit of balancing. Now, there's a lot of things that are said in here, which we'll kind of talk about, which we can't even fully grasp yet because we need the army book.
Yeah, much like Sigmar and 40k, we don't have the war scrolls or data sheets, which this tells you how to play the game, but all the juicy stuff is in the other book, and it's killing us not being able to see that.
We won't get that. We'll get that on September 1st.
This makes hints at things that we were like, huh? And we don't have it, and it's it's gonna be cool.
So even if we were to record battle reports with this, we would basically be using new rules, but we wouldn't be using new rules for the armies.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough. So
it does change enough to where the current stuff pre this can't work with this.
Yeah.
So it is that big. It is big enough for that.
Alright, so Tim's going to open it up, and due to copyright purposes, I'm not going to show you guys the inside of the book. So
y'all can look at me, you can look at the book, I don't care.
Yeah, we're just going to sit here and
I'm just going to do this quick, because I know most of y'all are new to this.
Indeed.
So, so the basic rules are the same, setting up the battlefield, characteristics. Now, the first thing I've noticed, on the character profiles, heroes now have a tier that they fall into. There are different tiers of heroes, which gives them different special rules and benefits in the game. So I'm imagining, well, the example they give here is Elrond, and he is of the highest tier, which is a hero of legend. It makes his warband sizes bigger in match play, and it gives him access to a cool special rule where when heroes of legend, when their force is broken, they automatically pass their first courage text. It's kind of like buys you a turn for the most of your army, so that's pretty nice. That's the only real big change on the profiles. Except the war gear section now specifies what weapons you can have. So those of you, and you know who you are, who are out there playing goblins and gave them all picks and axes to get the special strike, sorry, you can't do that anymore. But actually, you can, but you're penalized for it. You have to pay extra points. That's later in the book. So if you converted your models to Cheats of Rules, you're going to be paying extra points. What you need to play is the same. The rules, the basic principles are all the same. The turn sequence, the good versus evil. In match play, yes, good versus good and evil versus evil can happen, so that's okay.
One other thing that changed was being pushed back. It now has to be base to base in a straight line.
It's actually on this page I just turned to.
Oh, nice.
In the core basic principles, there's something in the core rules called directly away. So throwing monsters, sorcerous blast, siege engines, things like that cause models to move away and through things, now have to be moved directly away. So you draw a straight line from the base of the model that's throwing, across the base of the throwing model, so like splitting it in half into two semicircles, and it has to go straight across the base of the model being moved. So it's a straight line. You can no longer like have a troll pick up an elf and throw him wherever you want. You got to pick him up and throw him straight back from where he was. So that's different. Turn sequence is identical. Priority, movement, shooting, fighting, end phase. Nothing changed. Priority didn't change, except in matched and open play games, you have to roll off for priority, and narrative play actually reverts to like the original 1.0 rules of Lord of the Rings, where good always gets the first turn. So if you're playing narrative play, good always goes first. Otherwise, roll off like normal. Movement seems the same. Like I said, I didn't read everything, but everything I did read is the same. Moving, jumping, leaping, climbing. Line of sight is still true line of sight. It's still identical. Climbing, descending, falling. Prone models, control zones. I might be mistaken because I haven't played a lot of games under the Hobbit, but if you try to jump over a model that's on the ground now, you have to take a jump test. If you fail, if it's one of your allies, you just kind of stop there and look at them like a dummy. And if it's an enemy, you charge that enemy. So you can't just move over prone models for free anymore.
Indeed.
Shoot phase is still the same. Nothing here changed as far as we could tell. All of that remains the same. Just taking a quick look over it again.
Also, while Tim's doing this, if you guys want us to film another sort of how to play Lord of the Rings, or, well, it'll be called the Middle-earth Battle Strategy Game, or Strategy Battle Game, whatever.
Or, what is it? Strategy Battle Game?
Yes, Strategy Battle Game, or SBG. If you guys want us to do a how to play, please let us know, because otherwise the Aragion versus Angmar will kind of be like a bit like our how to play, because that's when I was very early in this game and still learning. So the only difference is the rules didn't really change too much.
Not much. There were tiny things. Like I said, I forgot the -1 penalty for moving and shooting, but that was me. That's a rule. And the only other thing that changed is during that game, my Ring Wraith compelled Legolas to lay down on one turn to keep him from shooting. He can't do that anymore. They can only move normal. You can't make them lay down or do anything silly. So it's because cheesemongers like me who would do that, they had to stop.
Indeed.
Everything else here looks the same. We're still in combat. Defended positions, doorways, all that's the same. We never covered that in the videos, but that's all the same. Courage tests are still the same, but one thing, now again, I'm not 100% sure because I didn't play a lot of the Hobbit, but when it comes to cavalry and courage checks, in one of the games Cody and I played, one of my wargs lost its rider, but he got to stay and fight. In the olden days, that was an optional rule, like an additional rule that you could use, where if a mount had a courage value or an attack, it could stay and fight. But now that's an official rule. So in all games, if a mount has an attack or courage value, it can pass a courage test and stay in the fight if its rider is killed. So that's cool. That's really good for evil, because good mounts are stupid. Throne rider, shooting, all this is still the same.
It's not that they're stupid, they're just cowardly, because they're ponies and horses.
And elven war steeds.
Did the elks actually stick around?
The elves?
Or
no.
You can't actually ride elks, just Thranduil.
No, just Thranduil. And I've never actually seen that profile, so I don't know. But, that's another cool thing. We read in this book. The rules for the models are coming on the 1st as well for Lord of the Rings, in the Armies of Lord of the Rings book. But next year, we're going to get the Armies of the Hobbit book, which updates the Hobbit profiles. But until that point, and probably right now, because this is the future, where I'm talking to you from the past, whoa. If you go to GW's website, it says in this book, all of the Hobbit profiles will be available for free download until that book comes out. So if you play Hobbit models, or you want to do Thranduil's Halls, or Lake Town, or the Iron Hills Forge World Dwarves, that are the sexiest models in existence, all their rules are free, so go check them out. We're in the hero section now. Might, Will, and Fate still work the same, except this is where our first kind of big change happens. Heroic actions. In The Hobbit, you have a ton of heroic actions your heroes can choose from. You have, like, heroic move, heroic shoot, heroic fight. You've got heroic strike. You've got several different shoots and move things, at the double, all that jazz. But they reverted it back to the old way, where heroes can only use heroic move, heroic shoot, and heroic combat, unless their profile lists access to other heroic abilities. So like heroic march and heroic strike and heroic channeling, you have to have that on your rules profile to be able to use it. And then they added new stuff. There's like heroic resolve, which you guys, I'm not going to go into that one because it's okay. But a really cool one we found is heroic defense in the fight phase. The hero can use a might point, but any attacks coming at them in the fight phase can only wound on the natural roll of a 6. So that's really, really good. Like, I don't know who gets it because it's one of the special heroic abilities, but that's really, really nice. So if you're severely outnumbered and you know you're gonna die, and I'm betting Boromir's got this, but we'll find out. That's really nice that they can only wound you on a 6. And by the way, if it's a hero that would normally be wounded on like a 6 followed by a 4, it's a 6 followed by a 6. So all rolls have to be 6. That's really cool. And then we've got heroic strength, which your hero can add D3 to their strength characteristics for that fight phase, up to 10. And then the coolest one, the most fluffy, characterful heroic thing I've ever seen. That we read this and like it took us a good 2 or 3 minutes to just drop jaws and act like dorks. Heroic challenge. If a hero is in base contact with another hero, they can declare a heroic challenge. If the enemy hero accepts, everyone else in that fight abandons the fight, and those two models have to fight each other for the rest of the game. If they move, they have to move to that model. They must charge, and they fight until one of the others is killed. So the way we described it is like in the Return of the King movie, when Eowyn is fighting the Witch King. Nobody came in to help either one of them. Now that happens on the tabletop, so you can have epic clashes of heroes, and like Cody told me in, was it 30K?
Yeah, 30K. I don't know if it's still a rule, but in
the
Horus Heresy, it used to be Primarchs, if they got engaged in a duel, they had to move 6 inches away from everybody, and that way nobody benefited from like unit buffs and all sorts of stuff, and that's what made it truly heroic. Now, the rest of the game, not heroic, but in Lord of the Rings, everything's heroic.
Super duper heroic. Alright, Will and Fate still work the same way they always did. We'll talk more about Will in a little bit, but first we're going to go into monsters. Monsters have been separated into a couple different categories. You've got your regular monsters, and now you have war beasts, so kind of like your Mumox or your Gorgoroth great beasts. They have separate rules. We're not going to go into all that, but the war beasts have a different set of rules than the regular monsters. Like, they don't have access to the brutal power attacks, like the barging and rending and hurling. The big guys can't do that anymore. But the brutal power attacks, the only real big change we saw was in Hurl, where they throw the enemy. They don't throw them as far, and they can't control the direction anymore. It's just directly away, like we talked about at the beginning of the book. So it got a slight nerf. It's still good, but it got a slight nerf. Barge is still the same. War Beasts, that's a whole thing. If y'all want to play Mumok, read that. It's really just for you. Weapons and war gear, there are some slight changes here. Good stuff, not so good stuff until we see the stats of the models. For instance, two-handed weapons no longer have the option to be swung single-handed. So you always have the -1 duel penalty, but +1 wound dice. But there's a new category of weapons called hand-and-a-half weapons. So like Elven Blades do get the choice to fight normally or two-handed. So that's been... The old two-handed weapons are now hand-and-a-half weapons, and two-handed weapons just straight up have to be fought two-handed. Now the cool thing we read about hand-and-a-half weapons, and this does help the elves quite a bit, is if you have a shield and you're fighting with it one-handed, you get the defense bonus, which you didn't get before. But if you choose to fight two-handed, when you're doing that, you lose the defense bonus. So if you lose the fight, they're hitting you without your shield. So it gives you the flexibility to put shields on all your elves and be awesome. Special strikes are still in. I didn't read all through them, but they seem the same. Spears, war spears, pikes, lances, all work the same. Elven weapons the same. Master Forge weapons, I don't know if this is new, but I don't remember it. It's pretty much you don't suffer the -1 for two-handed weapons, but that's also the same as Burly. That's another rule. So there's different ways to get rid of that penalty. So I'd be surprised if anything other than basic warriors ever take a two-handed weapon penalty. Staff of Power is a hand-and-a-half weapon, so it works like it used to, and it still gives you the free will point to cast spells. Whips and all that's the same. Special strikes are the same. Missile weapons, I did not see anything change in here, except it's nice to have all of the weapon profiles in one place instead of having to flip through all those books. Like all the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings ranged weapons are in this one little chart. Banners are the same. Cloaks, horns, drums. They're the Elven cloaks, horns, and drums are basically the same, except Elven Cloak now gives you the Stalk Unseen special roll, which is the same thing. The One Ring, did not read that because the odds of you coming up against something with the ring are slim, so if you need that, you can read it yourself. No, I'm serious, it's the whole page, y'all can read that. But yeah, it makes you invisible. You can sneak around. It's really, it's fun to play with, especially if you have a Sealder on a horse. I used to run him with the ring, so he'd be an invisible missile, and he'd just pop it off and charge people. It was great. Armor, shields, yeah, we talked about that. It's the same. Magic, this is fun. Casting spells is the same as it was. You use your will dice, you roll them, you have to hit a target number, you try to resist it. The few differences, resisting a spell is neat now because you still spend your will points as normal, and you have to equal or beat the casting roll your enemy got. So if they needed a 3 to cast a spell and they rolled a 4, you've got to roll a 4+ to block it. But if you roll a 6 to resist a magic spell, you regain that will point. So if you can roll 6s really well to resist spells, you can do it all day long. So that's really nice. One big difference is in the book. I'm not going to show you, but we have all the magical powers finally in one place. You're welcome, goblins and Easterlings, Furies here. None of them have a casting value. So the only way you can tell what they need to roll to cast is going to be on the character's sheets. So some of them will be better at some spells than others. So that's the casting values aren't in here. But the channeled versions of all of them are, including spells that didn't have channeled versions, like Fury. I'm not going to go into the specifics of most of these, but there is a new keyword they added here. They added keywords for magical power durations. You've got instant spells, temporary spells, and exhaustion spells. Instant powers go off right away. Temporary last until the end of that turn, or end of the phase. And exhaustion spells are the ones like Fury and like a channel blinding light that last until you run out of will points. So it's the same thing, but now they have official verbiage that people can use and know how long the spell lasts. Special rules. I didn't see anything new in here, unless I'm crazy. It's all good stuff. This is where you have like your Harbinger of Evil and Bodyguard and Mighty Blow, Burly, all that stuff. Cave Dweller. It's all back here. The Hobbit Rulebook had a very similar section. Advanced rules. This is the stuff that's super duper situational. That doesn't happen often, like water, carrying things, passengers, sentries. That's all. Most of that's been around since the first game, but that was in an old White Dwarf supplement. Siege engines are here. Everything looks the same to me. Again, I didn't read every word, but nothing. There were no headings on any paragraphs that looked suspicious to me, so I didn't have to read any of them. Sieges are in here. That's always been a super fun thing in Lord of the Rings. If you ever get a chance to play a siege, you should try it. Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth strategy battle game has now been split up, just like 40k and Sigmar, into the 3 ways to play: narrative, open, and match play. Narrative play is basically you play the scenarios out of the books. If you have like the Fellowship of the Ring supplement, you play it as it is. It'll tell you who's on each side and how to win. You can play through the stories. It gets a whole page. Look at this. Woo! That's the narrative section. Open play reminds me of the original Lord of the Rings rules, where there weren't any restrictions on what you bring. You just pay the points and you bring them. Even here, you don't even have to pay the points, but it reminds me of the old game where you could have like a horde of little goblins, and your enemy just has a couple of heroes. So it's kind of use whatever you want, have fun. Can be fun, but I think match play is where it's at, guys. That's what Cody and I have been doing, where you have heroes and warriors in their warband. It works the same. You've got bow restrictions, choosing armies. Heroic tiers are in this section. You've got 3 tiers. You've got Heroes of Legend. They can have 18 followers in their warband, which is really nice. And then, like I said earlier, they can automatically pass their first courage check for being broken due to the last stand special rule. The second tier, these are Heroes of Valor. They can have 15 followers in their warband. Heroes of Fortitude, which is tier 3, can have 12 followers in the warband, which is the current way it works. Minor heroes can have 6 followers, which kind of scares me. Like if you're running like goblins and you're captain heavy, you lose a lot of goblins. So we'll have to see their book, to see the new book, if there's any changes there. And then independent heroes like Shelob or Grima Wormtongue, they don't go to warbands. They're their own warband. Fun thing, we have this neato ally matrix now for match play, where you gain. Like I said, we don't have the other book, but you choose an army from a list and you get all kinds of army bonuses, kind of like Age of Sigmar has allegiance abilities. You get that stuff. If you choose allies on this chart that are historical allies that would actually have fought with that army, you don't lose your army bonuses. If you pick convenient allies on the chart, you lose the bonus, but there's no penalty. And if you choose impossible allies, say for instance you want to play Numenor and the Fellowship of the Ring, which did not actually exist, the heroes can only affect models from their specific army list when they use heroic abilities or their standfast. So it's not a huge crutch, but it is a slight problem. But that's the big difference there. We have 12 match play scenarios in here, which are fantastic. We haven't read all of them. We flipped through it, but this looks good. This looks like really good stuff.
It's a lot better.
They're not all just simple stuff. Like there's some of these take 2 pages to explain, which is really cool. So that's that. Next we come into the fancy pants. Oh, look at our pretty model section in the Armies of Middle-earth, where it's just all the existing models. Now I did scour it. There are no spoilers, nothing new, but fun. All the Forge World models are in here.
Yep.
So that's neat.
And we can't actually show you this part of the book, so
we can.
Technically, yeah.
Well, y'all, it's on the website. You know what's here. Like, there's the Thranduil from Forge World, the Forge World Guair, the Rabbit Slay, all the Azog's Legion. So yeah.
Go back 2 pages to the
this guy.
By the way, guys, my wife and I were watching the Battle of the 5 Armies the other night, and she asked me, Cody, what the hell are those? And I was like, Cheyenne, I don't know, because I've never heard of nor seen such creatures. Now, we all know Gundabad Ogres. I kind of assumed, but I didn't want to assume it's 2018.
Yeah, we might have known that had we played the other 2 Hobbit games, but I never did. I only played the first movie.
Exactly.
Then there's Smaug.
Which I've never seen anybody have.
No, as bad as I want one, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple sample armies in the back. This is nothing fancy. If you guys have been following Warhammer Community online, all of these were on their website a couple weeks ago, or about a month ago, since we're time traveling here.
Yeah. Can't show you guys.
That wraps it up. Like we said, this the core rules are not that different than they were. There's a few tiny tweaks. For instance, another tiny tweak that I forgot to mention when I was flipping. When models back away, when they make way for friendly models that lose a fight, it used to be you could just anyone who wasn't engaged can scoot an inch to help. Now only one model can scoot back to make way, so you have to think. Priority is even more important when you're choosing combats because your opponent will have less chances to save guys that are surrounded. So that's a thing. But other than that, sorry, a big dog just walked in. That was cool. But other than that, the rules are the same, and we won't know much else until we get our hands on the Armies of Middle-earth book, which should be the. We're losing control. This is the main course, but that's like the other book is the sides and desserts, the really important stuff, and we need that. So as soon as we get that, we'll get back to you. But everything looked good. I've been playing this game since day 1. It gets my approval. It's fantastic, and I can't wait to do some games. So here's Cody. I'm tired of talking to y'all.
Yep. So pretty much, me and Tim can start recording immediately new battles for you guys. But it'll be with these rules, and it won't be with the new army stuff.
We can do open plane.
Yeah, so technically yes. So basically, if we recorded with the new rules, it would just be with the new updated core rules. Because technically, as soon as I upload those videos, in less than 2 weeks' time, as soon as that army book hits store shelves and you guys open it, the army list that we just recorded
will be
a week later are completely validated and illegal in some regards.
We're in that weird Twilight Zone phase where we want to record, but we probably
shouldn't because it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm gonna release a couple videos
just to wet you guys.
Yeah, and that's gonna be pretty much it. Otherwise, if we did record in the Twilight Zone, it literally wouldn't make any sense, and it wouldn't change anything. So it'd be like Middle-earth strategy battle game, but only half of it.
And then the worst part is in 6 months from now, when people watch those videos for the first time, they'll be like, "That's not the rules!" Even though, yeah, see, you guys know, y'all know, you've seen it.
Yep. It's just like magic. If we started recording now while we're in the supposed Twilight Zone, we wouldn't know what to do, technically. Yeah. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it.
There'd be no spells.
Yeah. Technically.
What do I roll?
That's it for the rules manual, guys. So we'll try and get bat reps out to you guys as soon as we legally can. Technically, with books and stuff, we're in the Twilight Zone. So we will see you guys in the next video. So if there is a bit of a delay in Lord of the Rings content, we're waiting on a book. So like Tim said, Twilight Zone. So we'll see you guys in the next video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll get you guys the Army book review as soon as we can get our paws on it. So we'll see you guys later.